We're seeing a short-term pullback within the crypto markets. Volatility is very low, and there's a big move that's going to be coming. We'll discuss that and more on today's show. Let's get straight into the show content. Banter bubbles over here. Most of the coins on the hourly time frame are starting to pull back. Let's quickly have a look at the daily. Some still holding up green, but you can see even on the dailies, a lot of the coins are starting to put in a bit of a pullback over here. And is this the start of some of the things that we previously discussed were some of the risks towards the market, right? Well, invalidations were given and they still remain, right? Sunday lows. That's pretty much still going to be the main invalidation zone for pretty much any coin that you're looking at, from Bitcoin to ETH to Solana to SUI. I would say invalidations on any long trades is going to be below the Sunday low, right? So as long as you can hold above that, then the bias can remain bullish. But I do think you need to be cautiously bullish at these key levels because there is a big move that's coming. And although there is a possibility for a short squeeze with some liquidity towards the upside, there's undoubtedly momentum running out for the bulls, right? Bulls are having to fight harder and harder to defend some of those key levels, and the momentum oscillators will begin to roll over. And this doesn't sign ultimate doom and end of the bull market or anything like that. It simply just means possibility for shorter term corrections, with Bitcoin pulling back into the $95,000 region, possibly even just $100,000, and then you'll be looking for major support. And right now, this is of course always a risky time to be in the market this late into the bull market, establishing new positions. But if you've been in since the beginning and you've been with us for a few years, you should be absolutely a-okay. I'll update all of you for the shorter term as well, those of you are recently entering and taking those shorter term trades, right? Big news coming out, right? Yesterday, some of you may have already seen this. We actually ran a poll here to see how many of you have heard about this. And currently, it doesn't look like too many, right? 62% of you said you didn't hear about it. And that's Trump media raising up to $2.5 billion for Bitcoin Treasury to accumulate more Bitcoin. Now, these things won't always have immediate effect now, but it will have an effect leading into the next part of the cycle. And this is part of what us Bitcoin bulls over the years have dreamed of, which is, of course, institutional adoption and nation state adoption. And that's exactly what you're seeing happening, right? So it will be 1.5 billion in terms of equity, 1 billion in convertible notes, very similar to the MicroStrategy thesis. And they're going to be custodying it, interestingly enough, not with Coinbase, but with crypto.com, right? So we'll see how that pans out. Is this a sell the news event? I guess only time will tell, right? So liquidity is very low. Total liquidations over the last 24 hours sitting around that 214 million. And over the last hour, you can see very low, right? 5 million. A majority of those coming on the long side. Very high leverage traders as price pulls back even just slightly over here. So expect that you'll see this increase in the days and weeks to come. And one of the things that could drive that volatility is going to be the FOMC meeting, right? Meeting minutes, not an actual meeting, but the meeting minutes, which suggests what the Fed are looking to do next, is going to be released at about 10 p.m. That's my time in the US. That probably puts it about, I think, around 4 or 5 p.m. for you guys. So keep an eye on that, right? Speaking of MicroStrategy and the MicroStrategy playbook, right? I think this is very important to look at over here. I honestly think there's a very good chance that MicroStrategy has topped for the cycle, right? So I am obviously putting my neck on the line by saying that, because I know there's a lot of MicroStrategy bulls out there, many of which are watching the channel. But I would rather mention that now than say something like that, you know, if MicroStrategy does something like this and now it's trading down here and I say it's topped. Okay, of course, bro. Obviously it's topped. If it's dropped all the way back down to the baseline levels over here, which is around like $40, as it currently stands, what have we seen, right? Well, we saw the big move up. We have literally what looks like a blow-off top over there with a massive, and we're on a weekly candle, right? A massive swing failure pattern over there, rejective candle, resistance, price comes down, revisits exactly into that golden pocket, right? Between the two green lines over there. That is your 0.618 and 65 level when anchoring from the top to the bottom of the move over here, retesting into exactly where you would expect a resistance to take place. And currently, that's exactly what it's looking like, right? Price is rejecting. Now, of course, it will be very telling when price comes back down towards the overall mid-range. You can see marked by the white lines, we have range low, we have range high, and then we have the mid-range. Now, if it is going to continue bullish, well, you should expect a little bit of support to be found over here in the form of a high-low. And then even then, I still think it will struggle to break out. I think you'll probably set in a lower high and just consolidate. Now, remember, in the prior cycles, MicroStrategy actually topped before Bitcoin did, right? So Bitcoin went on to make new all-time highs whilst MicroStrategy didn't. And that's currently the case. That's exactly what's happening within the market right now. So I think one of the things to pay attention to, as there is a lot more competition coming into the market following the MicroStrategy playbook, which means demand through MicroStrategy shares may begin to diminish, right? It's just food for thought. Put on your watch list. I think that it's a potential that was basically the complacency bounce. Remember, when you pull up the Wall Street cheat sheet, which any of you can do at home, this is pretty much what it looks like, right? You go through, hope into thrill, into euphoria, into, it's just a cool off little sell-off over here, into a complacency bounce, and then into bear market territory. And there's a real possibility, overlay that, look at the psychological phases and ask emotionally, what did people involved in MicroStrategy go through, right? What I do want to remind you is, if you're looking from the bear market lows, you can't say this thing didn't have a bull market, 4,142%. That is massive. Huge gains, much bigger gains than what Bitcoin's provided. That's big. Very, very, very big moves over there in quite a short amount of time, right? Let's quickly look at the stock market over here. Stock market still looking good in terms of the SR flip. Let's just zoom in on the daily time frame. That's your SR flip, looking to hold that level over there. And so far, it's doing exactly that, right? So stop loss below Friday's low on the stock market. As long as it remains above that candle over there, you're looking at continuation onwards and upwards. Gold over here, also potential that it's top. I'd like to see a little bit more over there, but similar, right? You got that topping candle over there on a TD sequential 9 count across multiple different time frames. That shows trend exhaustion. Price comes down, eventually takes out the lows over there, so creating a lower low, and you have potential for lower highs, right? So if this does continue to roll over and you can put in consecutive low lows and lower highs, this would be your first low, first lower high, second lower high. And once you put in 3 over there, that becomes a trend, right? Then the third lower high, you can actively start to short and look for continuation towards the downside. So that's looking good over there. Let's continue with Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin really adding pressure. And this is exactly what I'm talking about in terms of bulls running out of steam. Now, if the bearish case plays out, remember that short-term bearish, we still believe that that's going to lead into high time frame, high lows, which is still a very, very healthy thing for the market. So if you do see a drop down towards those moving averages over here, which is coming in around just between $95,000 and $100,000, that becomes a buying opportunity for the medium to high time frame where you can start to look for continuation of the bullish move, right? But as it currently stands, you need to be really, really careful that you don't put in the deviation. You're already starting to add a lot of pressure into this trend line over here, and you don't need liquidity charts to understand that liquidity is greater towards the downside than it is on the upside. There are some short traders that will get absolutely smashed if price moves through this level, but my best bet is that those are professional traders. Those are not retail traders. Retail traders never short the market. Those are professional traders that are hedging against their long position, so they probably don't care if you move up. The reality is, if price does this, many more people are going to get absolutely wrecked in that type of an environment, right? So invalidations are very clear. I don't know how to make it any more clear, right? I always read the chats. I always see confusion. You guys need to join Whale School or something so that you can learn a little bit more about how the TA works, how the charts work. Very clearly, stop loss below the Sunday low. If you take out Sunday low, especially on a closing basis, you're in for probably a couple of days correction. And then the base case for support areas is going to be around that 95 to 100K region, depending on when and if it happens, right? Cool. Bitcoin on the daily, same thing over here, holding the high time frame range. The part of the bearish thesis would be, if you do deviate that, you're deviating the top side of the trading range. But the problem is this opens up the possibility for a Wyckoff distribution schematic, right? And distribution could really get ugly, right? We've seen distributions go down way, way, way lower. So not to get super bearish or anything, we're just outlining the worst case scenarios. We currently have long trades on the table still, currently still maintaining those positions. You can see we in the SUI trade still 322% up over there. So I'm maintaining that position, still holding that position over there. But we do need to be careful of any of the downside risks, right? So liquidation levels, deltas over here, are traders long or short? Well, you can see on ETH is still pretty positive, right? I was just updating the Whale Room community this morning, the difference between ETH and BTC. BTC's put in a much more healthy correction so far in terms of of the funding rates, which I'm going to show you visually, whereas ETH is still remaining relatively positive over here, right? Which puts ETH in a little bit more of a risky position where if there is a flush from Bitcoin, there's a lot more downside damage that could be done on ETH. Even though that's probably my biggest position right now, I'm just outlining the rest of you. Be cautious of there, right? BTC, Sol, Popcat, Sonic, and Sui, all negative deltas over there, which does open up the possibility still for one more short squeeze, right? So BTC, you can see over here, liquidity is high above at $111,000. But as mentioned, chances are these are professional traders that are hedging against their spot positions as insurance in case price goes down, right? Whereas if you look at ETH over here, well, this is what I'm talking about, right? We have positive deltas, as I've just shown you over here. Deltas are positive, meaning a lot of traders remain long on ETH. Given its recent strength within the market. ETH BTC also looking good. We highlighted that yesterday, and therefore you have a little bit more liquidity on the downside than the upside. So don't be surprised if you spike down just a little bit more. I'm going to show you the exact levels. I showed you the ascending triangle yesterday. We'll update you on that. There's a chance of moving down to about 2,500, giving anyone who's missed out a second opportunity, right? So let's have a look at some of these things over here in terms of Bitcoin versus ETH. Right, you can see over here, if you do look at Bitcoin, the funding rate, which is how much money you're paying to keep long positions open, has flushed, right? It's dropped down quite significantly. You can see over there, the low bars have come down significantly. If these start to go negative, that's where you get your buying opportunities, right? We haven't really had negative funding in quite some time. In fact, the last time that we had proper negative funding was all the way back here on about the 5th of May. So early May, you put in negative funding a couple of times, and that's ultimately what drove that next move towards the upside. Now let's quickly switch gears and have a look at ETH USDT on Binance Futures as a comparison. Well, you're seeing very, very different picture over here, right? Firstly, look at that open interest, right? And that's exactly why you're seeing those deltas positive. Look at that open interest, massive move up. It's starting to come down a little bit more, but if BTC sneezes over here, right, this can easily drop significantly, which would mean a significant price drop, possibly to that 2,500 level. Also look at the funding rates, right? The funding rates remain relatively elevated, whereas BTC's funding rates have already dropped all the way back down towards the zero line over there, right? Last time we had negative funding, we spoke about this. We said this is where you're attempting to put in a range low. So if you do get another move all the way down to those range lows for ETH, probably another opportunity, right? Let's quickly have a look at ETH in terms of these various different time frames. So ETH on this time frame, my messaging has been clear. Demand zone remains all the way just around that $2,000 or sub $2,000 mark, between 1,900 and 2,000. However, what is the likeliness that price comes down into this? Now, BTC would have to put in that deeper correction, $95,000 to $100,000. If it does, then yes, you're probably going to see ETH move into the demand zone. But as long as Bitcoin can hold up and defend the current levels and range sideways, pretty much between this $105,000 and $110,000, chances are that ETH will maintain this level, and then you got the target of 3,300 in mind, right? What does this mean? It probably means that you're better off maintaining spot positioning, not going over leveraged on ETH. And that keeps you in the market in the event that you put in a big move towards the top side over here. And then if price does happen to come down into the demand zone, expect that it's going to very, very quickly be brought up, right? And then you can use that spot to margin long some of it over here to make up for the drawdown, right? Very risky strategy, but if you know what you're doing, it is something that makes a lot of sense, right? Right now, it looks more likely that this will continue to maintain sideways with already a closing candle over here, putting it at 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 days, almost a whole month of sideways price action. Decreases the chances that you're going to see that move into the demand zone and drastically increases the chances that it's just a number of days before you're going to put in the explosive move towards the upside over there, right? So that's your high time frame. ETH BTC, we look for the big move up over here. We drew this already months ago, and so far it's holding up. It's looking like it wants to break out against Bitcoin, which is at least one good sign for the altcoin sector, right? ETH USD, so what would that look like in the short term based on everything that I've shown you over here? If you do get a little bit more of a flush in the open interest and the funding coming down, well, what that means for ETH USD is this, right? Hopefully you maintain this ascending triangle where you had 1, 2, 3 attempts at breaking out. The fourth attempt almost always breaks out, right? So if you can time an entry on a margin long position or a leverage position over here around this 2,500 with tight stops below at about 2,455, that provides an opportunity for those who yesterday were feeling extreme FOMO as prices were moving higher and you had missed out. Now you can start to reload, right? So on some of my high leverage position trades, I've taken a little bit of profit, right? And I'm planning on reallocating that should price come down into this 2,550 level, right? I'd like to reallocate over there. If you put in the high low, my expectation is that the fifth attempt, which if you look at my trajectories and drawings, if it were to happen or play out like this, would be end of May, beginning of June, that you're looking for the breakout of this ascending triangle. And remember, we got the measured move for that, 3,300, very, very, very similar to this price target, which lines up with the yearly open, which has always been the target, right? It's always, since ETH was 1,500 to 1,800, that has been the area of interest that we've been looking at, right? Cool. So where could things start to turn around? Where could the short-term little corrections possibly meet its end, and then you start to reload? Well, it could be as soon as today, as you watch the USDT market cap respecting this parallel channel, right? So watch for one more move up over here. As long as you remain under 4.6%, then you'd want to be loading up on your longs into this region over here. And if you see weakness, then you have confirmation you may put in the move down. What's interesting about this, which I also highlighted to the whale room community this morning, is we've always had the target in mind for the yearly open, which I've just circled over there, right? The yearly open has been the target for USDT dominance. USDT dominance goes down, cryptos move towards the upside. Now, I think extreme euphoria will come into the market when you start to see price trading around that yearly open. And now that I've highlighted this parallel channel, which you can see has been respected over here, I wonder if you'll see a price move up over here, maybe a little bit of a shakeout or a bear trap in the crypto market, because this going up means crypto going down. For this to only slam back down, bring extreme euphoria, have the market chasing prices towards the upside. This sweeps through the yearly open. It looks like we've lost the yearly open and ultimately a fine support deviating back above. So therefore, this becomes your deviation, and that becomes a major top or a local top, right? Because this bottoming means crypto topping, right? So that's currently what we're looking at. That's kind of my high time frame plan. But again, as mentioned to the whale room earlier on today, one step at a time. For now, this is just a future plan. The immediate plan is what happens over here in this environment, right? And the expectation would be maybe a bit of a fake out and then slam it back down, right? And that will create the next upside move, which means in this environment, you'd be looking for your long opportunities if you've already missed out, right? So with that being said, we have a lot of trades on the table over here on Pinex. These are all the different trades. You can see we have some beautiful profits over here, 173% on the WIF grid bot that we set up over there. We have Pepe 143%, we have Solana 116%, ETH 75% in profit, and then currently the only one that's down is the BTC cross margin hedge trade, which means it's both simultaneously long and short, but that's only a 9% drawdown, and that's just a hedge, right? So we can make some adjustments to these. For those of you that want to follow along, there is a link in the description below. If you go over here and you scroll through, you should see it says, here it is, Pinex. And if you go to sign up over there, first you can claim your sign up bonus. Let's just see if it's listed over here. I think it's a pretty good sign up bonus that they're offering. There you go, 1,000 USDT, right? 1,000 USDT. And if you register, you're guaranteed you're going to get between 30 and 100, irrespective of how much you deposit, right? So sign up over there. Each of these little tasks that you complete will qualify you for additional bonuses, right? So you can continue to unlock some opportunity over there. Then once you've signed up, if you go through and you click copy the bot strategies, should you want to copy some of these, they are here, right? Click that link. It shows you all the ones that we currently have open. So these are some of the bot strategies and where we initially entered. Now, in terms of making changes, right? Let's have a look over here. I'm going to probably leave this ETH bot for a little bit longer. The WIF bot, Pepe bot, Sol bot, as well as the ETH bot. I'm going to leave them for a little bit longer. I'm not going to make any changes yet. But for those of you that do want to, if you want to increase your levels, right? Or you want to add more profit or more margin into the trade so that you can maximize your upside, you can do that over here, right? So if you click over here, for example, edit your price range. Currently, my upper limit on WIF is 143. What I may do is actually this one I may change now to 2. Let's just double check on the price chart over here and let's actually go to WIF, right? Because I think WIF can go a lot higher. So I don't want to stop taking profit if it can run it a little bit higher. in terms of longs, right? So as long as this holds up over here, this is why I say 2, because I remember from yesterday, 2 is around that mid-range region, right? For WIF, which is an underside resistance. This is a previous key level. So I'm going to change that one to 2, right? So you can change that, right? Reinvest. Yes, let's reinvest. We're going to reinvest. So we'll adopt that over there. And any of you can make these changes if you want, right? Let's just quickly click modify over there. All right. Okay. That one is set. So we've reinvested what we currently have in the WIF trade. If you want to make changes, feel free to use your own technical analysis as well. If you feel that a certain level is more significant and you want to adjust those things, absolutely, you can do that. All right, let's have a look at some of the others, right? I see we also have a Solana bot. Let's just check out Solana over here. Look, Solana, we're re-looking potential longs, right? So I believe that this can actually run all the way to previous all-time highs at $259 and possibly even beyond. So let's just quickly see Sol. We also have Sol over here. What is our current levels over here? Let's just modify and see what that's at. Where we got it, edit the price range. Okay, so currently we have 189 at the upper limit. 189 is just below there. I'm going to leave 189 because I believe even if you hit that level, you're first going to put in a bit of a pullback and then I'll reload on the long. So I'm happy with the way Solana one looks now at the moment, right? These are the trade opportunities that I dropped yesterday in Whale Room: XRP, Solana, Sui, NEAR, Aptos, Sonic, and Safe. For those of you that want that, that is in Whale Room, right? Okay, I see there's a request over there for Sonic from Najib, so we'll quickly go to that. Coming into the demand zone, right? So this is definitely a key area where you want to see price start to move. You want to see some low time frame demand kicking in. So if you want to time your entry on a trade like this, right, keep in mind you're putting in lower highs and equal lows. So unfortunately, the reality is that this could break down, right? That creates the presence of essentially a descending triangle, which is the opposite of what you want to see, right? If you have a look at that, calling a spade, descending triangle. So you either need to break out the top side over here to change the structure, clear those highs, put in a higher low, and then you can start to reestablish a position, or wait for this to play out towards the downside, which could mean Sonic could drop as low as 40 cents, right? If it drops to 40 cents, you're probably looking for a base to form over there and then a bit of a buying opportunity. What would that be as a percentage drawdown? So from there to there, that's about 8% downside. Okay, which would line up with if Bitcoin did put in a pullback. Remember, Bitcoin is, let's just quickly review Bitcoin again. What I want to highlight, right? Bitcoin needs to trade basically above this yellow line, right? 110,000. You need to see Bitcoin get back above 110,000 ASAP. Otherwise, what's happening is your RSI is declining, right? Which means you're going to start to put in bearish divergences. This is a sign of weakening momentum, right? Bulls will start to run out of momentum. They've had a huge move. Like what more do you want? I mean, for anyone that's complaining about that, you're an absolute noob. I'm just saying it as it is, right? You've had a 49% move, but you still wanted to just break out and go to 136, 140, like with no pullbacks, right? It would be much healthier for price to put in a pullback. This would be a really good thing. That's why we have both the long and the short trade present, right? For Bitcoin, we're currently in the long trade. But where does the long trade stop out? Stops have been moved to break even. You can raise this even higher. I'm going to leave it over there because I can't move this really, but stops are currently placed at 105,000. And I told you could theoretically stop out at the red line, which is Sunday low. If that happens and you start to take out the red line, which is the Sunday low at $106,632 written in the red on the right-hand side, if you take that level out, what does that do? That's where your short trade begins to become active, right? You have no chance of losing if you took this trade with us. If you took this trade and you gain acceptance under here and you start to break below that line, then you have to look for short trades, right? Any bounces that come into there, short trade becomes active, and the TP levels along the way is going to be TP1 over here around that, $98,000. And I mean, if it got really bad, TP2 is going to be coming into the mid-range at about 90K. Okay, cool. So it's a trader's market. It's definitely a trader's market. You need to remain very, very, very vigilant, very careful. You need to be willing to shift your bias very quickly from bullish to bearish. This is not an emotional thing. It's just business, right? Business as usual. You're just trying to trade the market in the right direction and mitigate your risk as much as possible. Cool. All right, what else, guys? What is my outlook on Casper long term? Look, it's an amazing project, amazing. But the reality is we have already seen what happens to the market, right? It doesn't matter how good the promise of a particular project or coin is. Unfortunately, the reality is that it just bleeds against Bitcoin over time. So you need to be able to play those boom and bust periods very quickly. And this is what I'm talking about. You can't get emotional about a project, right? And that's why sometimes I tell people, you're probably better off trading the coins that you hate the most, because then you don't get an emotional attachment to it, right? If you're long on a coin that you hate, you're very quick to cut the position because you anyway think it's a piece of garbage, right? Whereas if it's a coin that you love, what happens? You get stuck in the bias that this thing's going to change the world. It's the best thing since sliced bread. And then you just hold it into massive drawdowns and you lose all your money. So you need to be objective about things, right? So long term, what I think it's going to bleed against Bitcoin. I think that it's a cool project, but has it had its boom cycle already? And that's it? Possibly. Cool. All right. Okay. We can have a look at Litecoin because I've been hearing like rumors and talks that everyone thinks Litecoin is going to pump. So let's see. Let's have a look at Litecoin. I see that's one of the requests over there. Let's quickly look at Casper on the chart, just quickly to finish off that thought process, right? So there's a lot of lines over here because of the fibs. Let's just remove it. So that's your current picture, right? The reality is Casper had a beautiful move and we played much of that move. We had some great trades over there. And ever since then, it's been in distribution. It's putting in lower lows and lower highs, respecting that parallel channel. So in order to change that, it needs to break out of this downsloping channel, and then we can reassess. But even if it does do that, the chances are that it's probably going to chop about for a bit to reaccumulate before the next markup phase, right? And that's the story with Casper. So let's go to Litecoin, LTC USDT. Okay, Litecoin tends to run one of the last in the cycle. So if Litecoin is going to run, I can't even remember when last I pulled this chart up, but it seems to be respecting the levels, right? Okay, let's clean that up a little bit. So levels still remain mostly the same, right? Big demand area, big level that you would want to see Litecoin get through, possible reaccumulation, but it doesn't look any different or better to things like, AVAX or so-called layer one coins of the last cycle. It's just chopping about. You can look on the low time frames. I wouldn't want to do business over here in the middle of the range. That's my thoughts, right? It's just chopping about all over the place. Like maybe some people make an argument that you have a bit of a flag that's forming over here, a bit of a bull flag. But how reliable are these patterns on something like Litecoin, right? If that were the case, what are you looking at? There's your measured move, breakout from here to here. That's going to take you into the resistance zone over there. So maybe it's putting in a bit of a bull flag. If that were the case and you're looking for long trades, I would wait for the bottom of this parallel channel on the low time frames, right? So you're looking for something like this, a little bit of a move down. I'd rather allocate closer towards the bottom where I have a bit more to work with in terms of stop losses below those key swing levels. Okay. Alrighty. Okay. Arnold says shorts getting more wreck now in the past hour. Let's see. We can have a look. Objectively, you can just refresh this and you can literally look at the last hour. No, they are not. 3 million worth of longs liquidated, 600,000 worth of shorts liquidated. But there is always the chance for the short squeeze, right? It's tough trading environment at the moment when you're in this area. That's why I've tried to make it as crystal clear as possible for anyone that's new. Your stop loss goes below Sunday low. That's it. That's all I have to say, right? What else must I say? Long bias remains and bulls have a chance to continue to melt price up as long as you defend Sunday low. Last week we said Wednesday low. Now we're saying Sunday low because new price action has unfolded, right? So the level keeps getting raised, which is a good thing. That's part of trading. But be aware, don't have your head in the sand like an ostrich, right? Be aware of the potential risk factors over here, right? There is always risk, especially when the market starts to move more and more risk comes into the market during these final phases of the bull run. Cool. Okay. So in terms of the low time frame, since ETH is one of my main focuses over here, let's just quickly have a look over here. It is respecting this 50 EMA on the hourly. Let's just see on the low time frames, like the 15-minute. Okay, not bullish divergence yet, but momentum oscillator is beginning to shift a little bit. price is still capped below the 50 EMA on the 5-minute time frame. So, you know, a move back down towards the Monday high is a possibility. If you look at Bitcoin already dropped its Monday high and actually moved all the way to its Monday low. Look at that. So there it is, Bitcoin, and that just highlights how ETH has been strong relatively in the short term, right? So you've been able to play this range really, really nicely. Remember, the range thesis is you deviate the Monday low, you trade it to the high. You deviate the Monday high, you trade it to the low. You deviate the Monday low, you trade it back to the high. That's how you trade these ranges, right? Okay, cool. So yeah, maybe ETH will find a bit of momentum over here. You can see momentum oscillators are starting to pick up on the low time frames, but a lot of work to still be done over here. Let's just quickly review ETH again on the super low time frame. And remember, the target in mind is still here, yearly open, all the way at the highs, right? So maybe if this can start to pull back a little bit lower into the Monday high, that's where you can start to look for some opportunities. I'd say like 25.50 would break you back into the Monday range. That would probably get you to about the Monday mid-range, and that lines up with this, right? That would be the move down over here on the 4-hour time frame, which will be a beautiful second opportunity. Okay, the fourth time that it attempts at this 2,700 level, ETH's probably going to break out. Cool, guys. There is no alt season, says Aaron. Not yet, right? And there hasn't been. That is the truth, right? There's been a select few, but the definition of alt season would be where, you know, the majority of coins are outperforming Bitcoin over a 90-day period. That's what they define as alt season. I think it's something like, if you look at the top 100 coins, it's something like, you know, at least 2/3 of the top 100 coins on CoinMarketCap should be outperforming Bitcoin over a 90-day period, which is over 3 months. But you don't really want to wait for the confirmation of alt season. At that point, you're probably too late anyway. The best way to figure this out is to look at Bitcoin dominance, which I can put in the chart, or I can put in the show. Let me just see where I have it. Yeah, it is, right? Bitcoin dominance. And, you know, we're definitely nearing an end for Bitcoin dominance. But as it currently stands, low time frame, this is still bullish structure. But lining that up with the high time frame, the pink box is going to be a key area, right? So hopefully you're going to get a bit of a rejection over here. Because I say hopefully, because reality is that life is better when altcoins are running, right? It's much easier money. You can make a lot of money very quick. So hopefully a bit of a move up there, rejection, fail that level. And if Bitcoin did put in one more dump over here, you know, that would catch a lot of people off guard. That would pump Bitcoin dominance up into this level. And if you line that up with the USDT dominance, like maybe that's where they chase. And then you see a massive drop in the Bitcoin dominance. So yeah, time will tell. Time will tell. Okay, we'll see what happens, right? Sell the green, buy the red. That's all that you need to wait for. So that's it from me, folks. I'll see you all on the next one. Remember, links to Pinex are below for those of you that want to copy those bots over there and make your own adjustments. Use the link below. We'll open up a whole bunch of new things, especially if we do get a dump. That's it from me. I'll see you all on the next one. I hope you have a great day, and cheers.